here in psychology, being a therapist, helping others dealing with addiction and habits. Although I'm no longer in healthcare, as I'm in corporate strategy now, but alhamdulillah, this is still very near and dear to my heart. This discussion around habits that we all deal with. But I want to begin this afternoon, and it's going to be just to give you a time frame. Right now, it's about 1:54. Inshallah, I plan for us to do this together for about an hour, inshallah. How does that sound? We'll end at 3 o'clock. Sheikh Akib wanted me to do until Asr, but I'm going to keep this short. This group is small. We'll keep this light and inshallah as practical as I can, inshallah. I want to begin this afternoon, inshallah, with telling you about a young sahabi by the name of Abu Mahzan al-Thaqafi. Abu Mahzan al-Thaqafi, he was a young sahabi who had a bad habit of drinking. Companion, but had a bad habit of drinking. He was originally from Ta'if. He's from the tribe of Banu Thaqif. In fact, he became Muslim after the Prophet ﷺ had conquest of Mecca, but he became Muslim. He was a sahabi. His heart was in the right place, but he struggled because he had a long habit before Islam of drinking. And you just don't take iman, take shahada, and all of a sudden you make it flip. Some people do that, but other people, they struggle. You know this, right? Some of you, mashallah, maybe in your younger days you weren't religious. Or maybe last year, a few years ago, you weren't religious. But then now you're trying to be a little more religious, right? But sometimes you still struggle. Maybe you had a bad habit of being very angry. You snap very quickly. You are more, you're into Islam now. You go to MSA, you go to come to masjid program, you're praying more. But that bad habit still is with you, right? So it takes time. So Abu Mahzan al-Thaqafi, he's a companion that we can all relate to because he struggled for many years, actually. Even after he became Muslim, he was constantly, was found to be drunk, intoxicated. He was exiled at one point as a punishment. He would be, imprisoned at times because drinking alcohol was punishable by law at that time and in that place. And so he struggled for a long time. Now the narrations vary, and the historians they all differ on the whereabouts of this sahabi. But one incident of note that I'm very interested in, is the incident that when he joined the Muslim army at the Battle of Qadisiyah. Now, Battle of Qadisiyah was a military conflict between the Persians and the Muslim army led by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas at the time of Umar radiallahu anh. And so, there was a call for draft, and he joined this call for jihad. His heart was in the good place. He wanted to sacrifice. He wanted to give to Islam. So he joined the Muslim army. And they found him, and they're encamped, waiting for this face off with the Persians, and they find him drinking in the encampment. I mean, his heart is in the good place, but he struggled. I mean, that's one of his habits. He used to drink. He used to drink khamr. He used to drink alcohol. And so they find him, and so they bring him to the general, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and said, we found him drinking. And this is violation of the code of army. You have to have your dress some type of way. You have to have your clothes a certain way. You have to have your bedding a certain way. Military has discipline, right? Especially if you're in a Muslim army, and that's led by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and there is some sort of discipline you have to have, and definitely haram activities like drinking is not allowed, right? And so he's in violation of the army code. And so they bring him in front of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Someone said, listen, we're too busy right now dealing with the battle. I can't deal with this guy right now, So they put him in detention, and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas says, I will deal with him later. So now he's in detention. He's in a tent very close to the general tents, because detention tents are usually close to the army general tents. And he's there, and in the morning or whenever the time of the day was, and he could hear like the army garrison getting up, like they're getting ready for the battle. So he could hear he could hear the battalion, he could hear the weaponry, he could hear the horses, and he realizes like all the men and the army is leaving from the encampment to face off, the Persians, and he is still stuck in the encampment, it's locked up and in detention because he's in violation of the army code, and they're not going to let him be part of the expedition. They're not going to let him be part of the battle, and so he feels this sense of shame that like my habit is holding me back for doing something that I came here to do, to sacrifice for Allah, to be part of this great mission. And so he calls out, and they say he was yelling or he was talking, and Salma, the wife of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, happened to be there because she was encamped very close to that the detention tent. And so she hears this man crying and saying, and please let me out, let me go. And so she goes and talks to him, and he says to Salma that, listen, give me a furlough. Give me a furlough. Like in you guys know, if for someone who is in prison, if depends on the type of prison they're in, if they lose a loved one, for example, and they have a funeral, that sometimes the prison, they allow someone to step out for like a day under, of course, guards, to attend the funeral and come back to the prison. So he asked for a furlough. He said, no, if you allow me, he told Salma, listen, just allow me to go to, all the men left. If you allow me, I will just go on my own. I will fight in the battle. If I die, I die. If I'm alive still, I'll come back and I'll sign back in the detention. But don't let me sit here and just rot away while my brothers are fighting in the battle. And Salma, she takes pity and she sees the sincerity of this man, and she said, okay, yeah, but you gotta promise me though, if you go, you're gonna come back. That you're not just running away from detention. And he gathers up, he grabs actually one of the horse, that's actually Sa'd's horse, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas' horse, and he takes the spear and he runs into the battle, like he just goes. And so the battle takes place. Obviously, this is a military conflict where Muslims actually won over Persia, and by that Iraq became part of the Muslim empire. And so he goes in the battle, and people notices the horse. This is Sa'd's horse, and who's this guy on top of the horse? And the way he's fighting, he fights like Abu Hasan al-Thaqafi. They know how he fights. He's been in other battles. And so they like, okay, he's in detention. Who's this guy on the horse? And so, but a battle rages on, and towards the end, people notice some things, and they're not really sure. He comes back wounded, depleted, but he actually signs himself back up in the detention at the end of the day, after having fought and lived, and he signs back. And so Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas comes back after the battle, and his wife tells him that did you notice? And he said, yeah, we saw a man riding my horse, and had a cover on his face, and he said, yeah, that was your prisoner. I let him go because he was really begging and pleading, but he came back. And so Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he goes and visits Abu Mahjan al-Thaqafi in the detention tent, and he said, oh Sa'd, he sees him in this condition, wounded, voluntarily locked himself back up in detention because he kept his word, right? He kept his word. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, tears flows down his eyes, and he says, oh Abu Mahdan, if you were to drink again, Wallahi, I'm not going to punish you. Like he sees the sincerity of this man. He sees how much struggle. And Abu Mahdan turns to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and says, oh Sa'd, I will never drink again. I will never drink again. And they say that Abu Mahdan, that was a turning point in his life, and that turning point came when he realized that his personal bad habits were stopping him from doing something amazing in life. Sometimes just our own personal ambition is not enough. You have to lose yourself from yourself. You have to lose your ego from yourself, and the way you can grow as a person, the way you can improve, way you can become better, is when you have a mission that's bigger than yourself, right? This mission of serving in the Muslim army was a big mission for him, and that he realized, me drinking alcohol, this habit that I have, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, right? And so for all of us in this room right now, we all have habits that we're ashamed of. We all have habits that we're ashamed of, bad habits. We all have good habits that we want to incorporate in our lives, and we struggle with that. And so today I want to just talk about 4 things, inshallah. Number 1, what exactly is habit? Now, I know on the flyer it says, how to have good habits. What is habit? That word habit. What does it mean? Then I want to talk about what's the difference between habit and a sin. Sin, guna, right? What's the difference between sin and habit? Because I think sometimes we confuse those two things. Then I want to tell you about, number 3, how habit is so powerful in our brain. Everything that we do, how habit controls it. And then lastly, which is we're going to spend most of our time, inshallah, is talking about a system where we can master our habit, when we can work on our bad habits and we can work on our good habits. So the 4 things we're going to talk about, inshallah. So let's begin with, what is a habit? What is a habit? Question for us. What is a habit? I said we're going to have a conversation, right? Yes. So I want some definitions. What is habit? What does it mean?
Habit is something that we do on a regular basis, and sometimes it just comes automatically. Like I don't think about it.
Okay. So something that we do automatically. That's a good one. What else? What is a habit? Thoughts? Yeah. Something that you're addicted to. Okay. So something that you do automatically, happens without you sometime wanting it. Okay. So it's something that is done often. You do it every day. It's done automatically. Is very addictive. Okay. And it's difficult to break. Right? And it's something that you acquired. That's a very key word. Which means it's something that you did not used to do, but you learned. All habits are learned. Okay. And anyone have an example of what a habit would be? What's a habit? Give me an example. Yeah.
Drinking tea in the morning.
Drinking tea in the morning is a habit. Okay. What else is a habit? Examples of what habit is, or habit that you have, good or bad. Because not all habits are bad, right? Some are good habits, right? Praying Fajr is a habit. Is it a good habit? It's a very good habit. Okay, so not all habits are bad. So any example of a habit that we can think of? Any other examples? Okay, with drinking tea in the morning, we have one. Yes? Going to bed early is a habit. Okay. Yeah, so every morning person or evening person, there's other discussion about that. But yeah, absolutely. Now here's the interesting part. Habits, the way it works in your brain is that when you do something often, you start doing it, and brain sees that it brings you benefit, it creates a super highway in your brain. What do I mean by that? Imagine you work, you drive to work, or you drive to your school, for example, and you drive from Jamaica, and you drive to your office is in, New Hyde Park, right here. The first time that you put the address on your GPS, right, you will kind of follow the GPS, you will know which exit to take, you get to get to your destination. But if you do that every day, after a while, you're talking on the phone, you're not putting on the GPS, you just drive there without even thinking about it, right? You go there automatically, right? If you start drinking, say you are not someone who used to drink tea, all of a sudden you start drinking tea, or you start drinking coffee, became a new thing for you. Initially you think about it, but then it becomes automatic. So what your brain does is that your brain automates things. Because if you have to think about everything every time, it's a lot of brain power. So what brain does is that it automates things. So whatever you do every day, often, your brain makes a super highway so that you don't have to think about it. So that's habit. And so for example, it's such a deeply coded in your brain that people can lose their memory, meaning there are patients who lose their memory. They forget what happened to them 20 years ago, but they don't lose their habit. So there is a person famous patient who had a brain damage, and he couldn't remember past like last year. He lost all his memory in some brain damage. But if you put him in his old house, he knows how to go from his room to the bathroom to the basement. He knows how to go in his neighborhood. He doesn't know why, but he knows how to go about it. That he knows the map in his head, because habits are coded in a very deep part of our brain. So the way Allah hardwired us, we are habitual people. This is how Allah has hardwired us, right? And so it's something that automatically our brain does. Now, all habit serves a purpose. This is very important. I want to introduce you to habit because so that you know what it is. All habits serves a need. So, for example, if somebody has a habit of eating junk food, you say it's a bad thing. Don't eat junk food. But why are they eating junk food? What's the purpose? Anyone knows? Yeah. It tastes good. Okay, so it's a bad habit eating junk food. People still eat it because it tastes good. Okay, so it brings variety in your life, right? You have this candy, that snack, and this salt, this chips. Like it brings like a flavor in your life, right? So that's what it does. That junk food, it brings a variety in your life. Okay, it kicks in dopamine, like you said, feels good because the brain goes, oh, I'm getting some sweets, I'm getting some salt. It kicks in your brain. Okay. Maybe you're hungry, so actually it gives you some calories. Even junk food has calories, right? I don't know about you guys, but when I was growing up, it was Arizona and like Doritos chips. I don't know if that's still a thing. Is that still a thing that few people snack on? No, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Oh yeah, Arizona iced tea. Okay, so do they even sell Arizona anymore iced teas? I'm not sure. It's not common anymore. What people snack on? What's like the number one thing to snack on as a high school kid? Bubble tea. That's right. Bubble tea is so brown sugar bubble tea. Okay, not brown sugar, right? Brown sugar tapioca. Okay, so it's any kind of sugar or salt that kind of kicks in your system. Okay, very good. So all habits, they have a formula. I want you to remember this formula. Any habit that you have. Okay, now I'll give you an example of what it is. All habit that you have has a formula. There is a trigger, there is that behavior, the habit, and there's a reward. Trigger, behavior, and reward. Who eats pan here? Because I have some elders, uncles here, so I'm going to ask. Anyone eat pan here? Nobody eats pan. Okay. Okay. Let's eat another example. Coffee. Coffee, because a lot of us are drinking coffee or tea. Okay. There's a trigger. And then you drink a coffee, and then you get a reward. All habits work this way. Okay. What's the trigger for drinking tea or coffee? What do you feel right before you want to drink tea or coffee? So you feel a little tired, or you feel a little bit like lump. It's like okay. And so then it triggers you wanting to drink coffee or tea. Assalamu alaikum. And then you get a reward. What's the reward that you get from drinking coffee or tea? Feel energized? What happens when you drink tea? How do you feel? Yeah. So keeps you up. So the caffeine that's in the tea has caffeine. It actually, what it does, by the way, what caffeine actually does, it actually shuts off the tired factors. I'm going to say it in very, very basic English. It shuts off the tiring mechanism in your brain. So caffeine does actually give you energy. So let me tell you, caffeine does not give you energy. You're like, no, of course it gives me energy. When I drink caffeine or tea, I feel energized. No, what it does is it shuts off the signal that makes you feel tired. So your brain shuts off the tiring signal. So anyway, so there's a trigger, there is a behavior, there's a reward. Any habit is like that. Okay, so let me give you some other habit. Okay, there's a habit of biting your nails, for example. That's a habit, right? What's the trigger for biting your nail? What makes people bite their nails? Anyone know? Anxiety. Then you bite your nail, and then what happens? What's the reward? There's a reward to biting your nails. What's the reward? Huh? Why do you feel relieved? Mindset, true. Also, there are nerve endings on your fingertips. So when you bite on it, it actually feels a little bit of psychological, neurological relief actually. So there is you biting on it, putting pressure, right? The tactical pressure actually feels like a relaxation in your brain. Okay. Okay. So these are the stuff that we know. Okay. Let's give some other habits. Every habit has a trigger, has a behavior and reward. Okay. You reading Quran, for example. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some different kind of example. Okay. So reading Quran. Is there a trigger for reading Quran? What triggers someone to read Quran? Okay. Okay. So the trigger for you wanting to read Quran, there's a trigger. And this is a good habit, by the way. Reading Quran is a good habit, right? What's the reward of reading Quran, by the way? Get close to Allah. Okay, that's long term. Short term, what's the reward? What is it? Do you feel, after you read the Quran and you close it, you start feeling the reward coming down from the heavens? No. You feel something, you feel accomplished, yes. There is a spiritual barakah, right? There is a sakina that comes from the healing of the Quran. Right? You feel that. 10 reward, you feel it, you get that in paradise, right? Or close to Allah, that comes afterwards. Those are long-term benefit, right? But immediately, as you read the Quran, what happens? What do you feel? You feel something, right? So next time, you feel lonely, you feel down, and you feel the urge to and you realize, okay, let me read Quran, and then you feel the same way. And it's important to think about the habit this way, because what else can someone be doing besides reading Quran, right? What else can someone be doing besides reading Quran to get that same feeling? Yeah, they could learn to music. That's a very good example. So I could feel a little bit. I could feel a little bit not good, lonely, whatever, and then I put on some music. And this is true. I put on some music and I feel something, and I feel good. Same trigger, different habit, same reward. Of course, not the same, but similar reward. And this is important to know, because if you want to change your habit, you have to figure out whatever habit you're doing. You have to figure out what is something different that will give the same reward. So, for example, if you love just watching movies, for example, you have bad habit just watching shows after shows after shows after shows late at night, whatever. There is a reason why you're doing it. I can't just astaghfirullah, you're wasting time. Ramadan is coming. Cut your movie. That's not good. That's not good enough. I have to figure out what is causing me to watch the movie, and what do I get from watching the show, and what else can I do instead. That's a very important question. A lot of time, and this is the reason why I have this whole workshop on this habit, because subhanAllah, growing up, especially as a young person, I listened to talk, khutbah, and year after year, imams I would feel bad after leaving a khutbah or a talk, right? Or someone will tell me, fix your bad habit, brother, stop wasting your time, stop the sins in your life. And I always leave the khutbah and talk, I don't know how to do it. No one told me how. They told me it's haram, but I don't know how to stop. And so many young people that I meet that say the same thing. They feel bad about the haram they're doing, right? But no one ever tells them how to stop. They keep telling them to stop, and it's haram. And to motivate them, they tell them more stories about Jahannam or whatever else. Or to motivate them, they'll tell them about like companions who did amazing things, and you're like, I can't do that. That's not me, right? And you can't change that way. Someone got to show you how. Right, and so it's important to kind of think about habit and think about how exactly it works. So, very important point here is for us to know is that there is a trigger, there is a habit, and there's a reward. I want you to keep that in mind: trigger, habit, reward. And anything that you are doing right now, it follows that same pattern. So in your brain there is a certain pattern that it follows. Now, what is not a habit? Just very quickly, addiction is not a habit. I know someone used the word addiction here. Addiction is more of a clinical issue. It's the extreme form of a habit. We're not going to talk about that today, but I'm talking more about habit. Okay, that was our first discussion. What is habit? How are we doing with time? Okay, we're 20 minutes in. Good. What is the difference between sin and a habit? That's the next question. What's the difference between sin and a habit? Yeah. Perfect. That's it. So the difference between sin and a habit is that not all habits are sin, In fact, some habits are mustahab, or even like, fard, right? Some habits are good. Can someone tell me good habit? We talked about it a few seconds ago. What are some good habits? Okay, that's a good habit. Someone has a habit of doing adhkar after salah. That's a good habit to have. Okay, so some habits are sinful. Some habits are just neither. They're like mubah, and some habits are actually rewarding, right? Or can be even very encouraged. So habits is just a function of our the way we are hardwired as human beings. Allah hardwired us this way. Okay, so it's very important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, that He doesn't change the condition of a people until they change what's within themselves, right? And so it's important for us as a Muslim. Why are we spending time talking about habit? I should be telling you about like sins and giving you some stories and reading some Quran ayat about sins. No, it's important for us to really get to the root of things so we can improve, right? And so we take whatever avenue we have available to make changes. Okay, that's very quickly. I'm not going to spend, I have a whole section on this about sins and habits, but I'm not going to spend time on that. Let's go to number 3. We have 4 sections, okay? Section number 4 is what I'm going to spend the most time on. So section number 3 is, what is the impact of habit? Like how powerful habits are. I alluded to a little bit earlier, but 40% of everything that we're doing every day are actually not decisions but habits. So think about everything that you're doing throughout the day, most of it is habit. And we say this, we're like, it's just habit. I've been doing this for the last 40 years. So everything that we do is habit. So even certain things that are sinful, certain things that are rewarding, we are doing that are habit. So it's important for us to, work on our habit. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about for section 3. Are we moving very fast? Alhamdulillah, right? It's good. Because I want to spend the most time on our section number 4, which is the habit system. So that's the rest of our time. The next 40 minutes we want to spend on what is the habit system. All right. So how do we eliminate bad habits? How do we increase good habits? I'm going to give you a 5-step process, 5 steps, right? 5 steps I wish I knew when I was growing up and trying to be a better Muslim and trying to work on my habit. So I'm telling you now. So I want you to remember these 5 steps, okay? Step number 1 is you want to identify and decide. Come. What's your name? Oh, you can talk. Okay, it's too small. Okay. He's competing with the microphone. That's what it is. So I'll give you 5 steps. Okay, you guys ready? Remember the 5 steps? Step number 1 is you have to identify the habit. You have to identify and decide. So someone remember this. I'm going to quiz you on this. Okay. And the step number 1 is you have to identify and decide. You have to decide on what habit you want to work on. Number 2, you have to find your why. Meaning you have to have enough reasons. It's not good enough. It's not good enough just to say I want to change my habit. Why? Why do you want to change it? Oh, because it's haram. I'm gonna go to Jahannam. That's not enough. That's very far-fetched. I know it sounds very, very strange what I'm saying. But something that's very long-term doesn't push us the way always. It doesn't. So you have to find really reason why. For example, if you say, I want to read Quran. Or people say, I'll give you a simple example. I wanna work out. I wanna go to gym. Saying that I want to lose 20 pounds, that's not going to motivate you. It's too far, long term. But if you say, every time I get out of gym, I feel good. I breathe better. I feel better. I take a walk. I feel good. That will motivate you. Immediate will motivate you. So find your why. So number 2 is finding your why. Number 3 is you have to know the pattern. What's number 1? Identify. Number 2? Why you want to do it. Right. Number 3 is your pattern. Why is pattern important? Anyone know? All the things that you're doing, habit, good habit or bad habit. Why should we think about what the pattern is for us? Yes. And guess what? Who knows your pattern? Shaitan. And Allah too, but yeah, Shaitan knows your pattern. He knows exactly what to do and what you will do tomorrow. When you do a sin, it doesn't start when you do the sin. It starts like the day before. Shaitan knows your habit better than you know yourself. And so if you don't spend time figuring out what exactly is happening to me, Why I do this? Right? Why do I end up staying up late? Like what is happening to me? Right? You have to kind of do some muhasabah, some self-analysis. It's actually in the sunnah to do some self-analysis, right? And that's part of knowing your pattern. Number 4 is you have to replace it with better. Because you can never just stop something. That's not how it works. Because you still have that need. Right? You can't be like, I'm going to stop drinking coffee. Then how are you going to feel energized in the morning? How are you going to get your day started? You need something. You just can't stop coffee. You need to replace it with something. And then you have to condition it. Number 5 is you have to condition. You have to have support. You have to have people that's helping you. You can't do this by yourself. Okay? So, let's see, anyone remembers the 5? Pop quiz. What's the 5 steps? Identify the habit. Why you do it. Know your pattern. You have to replace it. Replace it first. You have to replace it with better, and then you have to condition it. Okay, very good. Okay, so let's start with, you want to be able to identify your habit. You need to identify your habit. So you want to think about your habit and think about how you want to change. Now, in this discussion, I could talk along about what habit you want to work on. There's something called the keystone habit. In simple language, what I mean is, there's some habits, if you just change them, a lot of other things changes in your life. For example, if you make a habit to come pray in the masjid regularly, bunch of other things changes too. So if you come for Isha for Salah, and then you want to come for Fajr for Salah, you're not going to be able to stay up late. So the habit of you staying up late is a little tough, because how are you going to show up for Fajr after not having slept? So automatically, there are some habits, if you focus on them, everything else changes. So we call them keystone habits. And so as you're working on yourself, there's so many habits you have. You can't get caught up. You need to kind of figure out 1 or 2 that will make a big difference. So inshallah, I had asked for some like pens or papers, but I see index cards. It's not going to help me. You guys don't have pens. But I want all of us to inshallah write down what is one unhealthy habit that you want to improve, that you want to eliminate. What is one unhealthy habit that you're struggling with right now, or not even struggling with? It's not the best thing you're doing, and that you would like to eliminate. And then also, what's one good habit that you want to start, inshallah? Especially Ramadan coming. What's one good habit you want to start? If you have a pen or paper, if you have a phone, anywhere, inshallah, I want you to think about what is one habit. I'm going to give you 1 minute. And I want you also write down, especially for the unhealthy habit, when did this habit begin? How does this habit change over time? What else is going on when this habit shows up? What effect does this habit have on other people? And describe the first time you had this habit. If you recall back, when did it start? So I want you to do some thinking for the next 1 minute, inshallah. I wish we had pen and paper, but if we don't, it's fine. If you're on your phone, you could write down, or just sit and think about it for the next 60 seconds, inshallah. Think about a habit that you have that's not good, an unhealthy habit. And then think about, when did it start? How did it start? What happens to you when it comes to this habit? Okay, let's take a minute. Oh, okay. So why don't we give out some index cards and pen? Yeah. I told you this is going to be an interactive talk, right? We only have very limited time. Look, I can't go to gym and tell you, okay, this is how you work out. Let me show you the videos. This is how you do it. Okay, now let's grab a pizza and go home. You're not going to, you have to actually get on the treadmill, right? And so a lot of time we come to talks and we just want to like sit back and just listen. That's not going to help us change, right? That's not going to make any changes. So inshallah, we need to do some work. So I got to do less talking, you got to do more work. So inshallah, just grab a pen, grab a paper, and I want you to write. Write down one unhealthy habit that you want to eliminate from your life. One unhealthy habit. Assalamu alaikum. One unhealthy habit that you want to eliminate from your life. And I want you to write down about that habit. Describe that unhealthy habit that you have. It's private. No one's going to see it, okay? So don't worry. Don't get nervous. Don't get embarrassed. No one's going to see it. I want you to write down a piece of paper. And for yourself, it's not a group activity. Don't show anybody else, okay? Um, what is that one unhealthy habit that you're struggling with that inshallah you want to work on and eliminate as you were approaching Ramadan? Okay, it could be any kind of unhealthy habits. Maybe it's sinful, maybe it's not, but it's just not healthy. Okay, so write it down. One unhealthy habit, inshallah. And if you also want to write one healthy habit, one new habit that inshallah you want to incorporate in your life, you can write that down as well, inshallah. One healthy habit. Just take a minute. As you're writing down the unhealthy habit, okay, make sure not to write your name, anything like that. Okay, just without writing your name. One unhealthy habit that you want to improve, inshallah, and then also write down maybe on the other side or another part of the page. One good habit that inshallah you want to start as we're approaching Ramadan. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a religious habit. It could be any good habit, and that's okay. You don't have to be like reading Quran, for example. It could be any healthy habit. Maybe it's for you eating healthy. Maybe it's for you starting working out. Whatever, some sort of good habit. Okay, mashallah. But when you write the good habit though, it needs to be specific. It can't be like generic, oh, I want to get healthy. That's not a habit. It needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, timely, it needs to be very specific. Because you can't work on something that's vague, right? Your bad habits are very specific, your good habits have to be also very specific. Okay, take 30 more seconds. Alrighty, okay. Anyone want to share what's one unhealthy habit? If you want to, you don't have to share. Yeah. Drinking too much soda. Okay. So tell me more. So here's where it is. This part is very important, right? I said you want to identify and decide. That was step 1, right? You remember step 1, identify and decide. That's what we're talking about right now. So it's not just enough to say, I have an unhealthy habit of drinking soda. We want to go deeper into this. And so just observe. So this unhealthy habit of drinking soda, how long have you been doing that for? Couple of months. Okay, so it's a new habit. Okay. How did it start? Okay. It goes well, I guess, with heavy food. Okay. But you used to do this before. This is new. Do you recall do you remember when you did it? Like which day, which month, like when it first started? Do you remember the day? Like you could tell? Last year, July-ish. Okay. So you did not used to drink this much soda before, but last year, July, you started drinking a lot more soda. Okay. Okay, that's good. Has this habit changed? Like how much you're drinking? How much are you drinking? How much soda are you drinking per week or per day? You drink soda after every meal nowadays. Okay. And you did not do this before. Okay. So drinking soda after every meal. Okay. And so do you drink any other time? If it's just there, you drink it as well. Okay. Okay. So after meal, definitely. And if it's just there. By the way, Jazakallah khair for participating. I really appreciate it. Okay. I bet that a lot of us here, we all have dark sides, and I'm sure it's probably even worse and more concerning than just drinking soda. So I appreciate you volunteering to share. Okay. And I know it's a little embarrassing to share in front of everybody, but honestly, we're all learning from you. Okay. We all have our dark side. We have things that we're ashamed of. We all have skeletons in our closets. So you're not the only one. I want you to know. And probably, and not probably, I know for a fact that in this room there are people that has unhealthy habits that are way more unhealthy than drinking soda. Okay, that they're struggling with. So let's continue. Okay, so you're drinking after every meal, and this wasn't the case till last year in summertime. Did anything? And how do you feel about drinking soda now? How does it feel every time you drink it? It feels good, okay. Have you seen any negative impact from you drinking soda? Probably not. And that's true. And that's why you're continuing. And now you're young enough and your body has enough good metabolism that little extra calories and sugar doesn't probably do anything for you. But so then why are you worried about it? Oh, you're getting dehydrated. Okay. So there is some issue. Small, not too much though. Yeah, because you're young enough, so your body kind of processes pretty quickly. So you're not that worried about it. But how did the doctor know they're drinking all the soda? Oh, so dermatologist says you're getting acne, and so there is some effect. And every every time I'm asking, how old are you? 15. Every teenage boy is worried about the acne. So dermatologist said, okay, if you keep drinking soda, that is not a good way to get rid of your acne. Okay, so you do have some good reasons why to stop, right? So to get better skin. Okay, is that motivating enough? Is that gonna make you stop or no? Not sure yet. Not sure. That's okay. And that's okay. And that's very important. As I get to the next section, it's not just enough to say, I have this bad habit, I want to stop. Why do you want to stop? When people come to me and say, brother, can you help me? I'm trying to stop this habit. I spend like 1 hour asking them why. Why do you want to stop? Because if you can't give me enough good reasons, then you're not going to stop. It's just not good enough for you to stop. You're okay. You're doing just fine, right? So we'll come back to you. And again, I really appreciate you volunteering. So it's important for us to think about how did it happen, when did it happen, what happens to me when I drink it, what are the things that are in the factor, do I feel guilty about it, all that. You have to kind of get deep about your habit. So on your piece of paper, did you all get to write down that details about your habit, like when it happens, how it happens, when it started? You all did that? You had a chance? Yeah? A little bit? Okay. Make sure you do that. And I'm just showing you a process. In this half an hour, I'm not going to be able to solve all of your habits. I'm not going to be able to help you become, all of a sudden amazing, persons. I want to show you a system and just give you some examples, and inshallah, you can continue on. You can, inshallah, build on this. That's the hope, okay? All right. So the step number 1 was identify and decide. Okay, we did that. Step number 2, find your why. You have to have enough reasons to stop, or enough reasons to start. Okay, let me show you another example. Anyone here has a good habit that they've been trying to start but have not started? Yes. So starting your day with Fajr, okay? And and how long you been thinking about doing this for? 3 years, and just have not happened. Okay. Okay. Why do you want to start your day with Fajr? So you want to have this this and by the way, a lot of successful people, they start the day early and stuff like that. Okay, so you want to start your day at Fajr time, and that's like I want to sleep early, get Fajr, start my day, and you've been trying for 3 years. Okay, what pain has it caused you that you have not started your day early? Okay. 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 If someone said that it sounds like you have some pain. If you don't, but it's just not big enough for you to what's the benefit of starting your day Fajr? You said you will get all your stuff done. That's about it, or anything else?
If I don't, then I end up sleeping a lot.
Okay.
On my body, I feel much more sleepy throughout the day.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So think about why do you want to do something, and it has to be. Can you think of another habit that a good habit that you started recently in the last 3 years? Any habit last 3 years, anytime like you started recently. Any good habit? Okay, take your time. I'll come back to you because I asked you that question because it's not that you are incapable of doing this. The question really is, how important is this for you? Right? It's not that you're not capable of starting your day Fajr. It's to think about, because I'm sure there are other things in your life that you have started. So it's not that you're incapable. It's more about the priorities. Yeah. So now you have a good habit of studying for your exam early. What made you start to do that? Because you really need a good grade. Okay. Because if you don't, you jeopardize your education. So you probably got into a little bit of a pickle with your. Okay. So see that there was a very painful reason, a specific reason. Okay. And again, I don't want to dwell on this. The point is, I want you to think about what are the reasons for your habit. So find your why. I want to tell you about a person by the name of Malik. Malik was born in the era of the companions, and some say perhaps he saw Ibn Abbas as a child, but he grew up a young man. He was a highway robber. He was a hired thug and a killer, and used to drink his life away, and that was kind of his life. And so this person Malik, I mean, think about one of the worst of the worst, in the community, and people used to be scared of him. He didn't have that the heart. And one day he was walking in the marketplace and he sees this poor man buying bread, right? So he buys some bread, and he buys the last bread that's on the shelf. Because back in days, it's not like you have preservatives. It's like the baker bakes it, you buy it, and you go home. He bought the last bread. Then this wealthier man comes along. He also needs bread, so he offers the baker double the money. He said, "This is the last bread, last piece you have. I'll take it." He said, "No, he just bought it. No, I'll take it. I'll offer you double." So now he overbids him to get the bread, and the old man says, "Listen, I can't overbid you. You're trying to pay a lot of money for this bread, but I have hungry children at home. I have young daughters at home." And so Malik, he's seeing this, and even though he's a highway robber, he's a hired thug and a killer, and is a criminal of many sorts. Something in his heart doesn't feel right, and he goes up to the rich man and says, "Give him the bread." Sometimes even the top people they have some heart. Give him the bread, and the man says, "No, I bought it," and he offers money from his own pocket, giving double the money, triple the money, until the man gives him the bread. And so, the old man says, "Jazakallah khair, thank you so much," and he said, "Listen, if when your daughters eat the food tonight, ask them to make dua for Malik." And from that, sometimes a charity, when Allah accepts it, it can transform your life. I remember this, and I'm in JMC, so I will say this. One time I was telling our Imam here that, Imam, he takes so long to fundraise, man. Back in the day, I was very involved in the masjid. So I was like, can we cut down the fundraising time? Because people come for Ramadan. Can we increase the time we do some of the talks and not waste so much time, precious time on fundraising? And Imam said something very, I still remember to this day. He said, Hasan, sometime people might come, they might not listen to the talk or whatever. But maybe they'll give a donation which Allah will accept. And because of that might become the reason for their hidayah. I didn't think of that before. I was like, they have to listen to a talk or a khutbah or a khatara, and then they will change. But you don't know what Allah will use to guide someone. Ultimately, Allah is the one who guides. Allah is the one who changes hearts. And so, Allah accepted this charity from Malik, right? And he had a change of heart. And so, Malik actually ends up, getting married because he want to have his own family. And Allah blesses him with a daughter named Fatima, similar to the daughters that he saved from becoming hungry. And he still has a drinking habit, so he was drinking, and his daughter came by, and she just playfully slapped the wine bottle from his hand. And so he felt really bad, and he decided not to drink anymore. Because you've seen this, right? I know a patient who used to smoke a lot, and he told me that one time his daughter came to his room while he's smoking, and he said, Dad, are you gonna die? He said, well, why? He said, I saw an ad that people who smoke, they die. And that thought helped, made him stop smoking. Right? Sometimes is that you're a young child and you have for them, and they say something like that changes you. And so Malik, he decides to change this habit. Now, unfortunately, what happens is his daughter passes away and she's 2 years old. And so out of the grief, he goes back to drinking. And it's a very important lesson here, right? If you change for someone, when that someone isn't there anymore, you're going to go back to what you're doing. If you change, you have to change really for yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you change for a person like your parents because they will see you, or you change because it looks bad, you change because it doesn't last. So Malik, he stopped drinking, but then when his daughter passed away, he went back to drinking. That was his habit. So whatever you're starting to do, whether it be a good habit, is it for you and is it for Allah or is it for someone else? Right? It's a very important question to ask. And so one day, while he's sleeping, he sees a dream, and in that dream he sees his daughter. He finds himself that he's in Yawmul Qiyamah in this dream. He's narrating, and he's running. This kind of a monster fire is chasing him. So he runs and runs and runs until he gets to the end of a shore, and he sees this old man just lying there, and he says, "Oh man, please help me! This fire monster is attacking me." He said, "I'm sorry, my friend, I'm too weak." And then he runs and runs again, and he gets to this little hill, and on that hill he could see kids playing, right? And among the kids, he notices his daughter Fatima, and she comes running to her dad. And he said, "Fatima, what's happening? Where am I?" He said, "Dad, this monster, this fire that's chasing you is all the sins that that you are involved in, all that drinking, all that you do. And that old man by the shore, that's your deed. You did one good deed in your life, which was to give some, bread to a man, in need. But it's not enough. It's too weak, right?" And so he wakes up from this dream. and he decides to change himself. And in that dream, his daughter, recites this verse from the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that, hasn't the time not come for those who have believed that their hearts should become humble by the submission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That hasn't the time come. How many more reminders do you need? How many more lectures do you need? How many more khatara do you need to attend? How many more, Facebook posts or those Islamic lecture videos on YouTube with nasheed? How many more of those do you need? Like, it's time to change, man. Like, it's time to change. It's time. Like, take some action now. It's enough with the lectures, enough with the talks, enough with the reminders, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, has that time come to make some changes in your life, right? And so, and that's why he goes for Salatul Fajr in the masjid, and in the Fajr Salah, the Imam recites the same surah, the same verse, from Surah Hadith. And so he decides to change his life around. This time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for really for himself, not for his daughter, not for someone else. And this Malik, becomes the great Imam Malik ibn Dinar, a great tabi'i, who studied with Anas ibn Malik. In fact, they credit him to being one of the imams that brought Islam to the Indian subcontinent. He eventually becomes one of the people that travels to Indian subcontinent, and they say probably south shore of India in the region of I believe Kerala and those areas. He brought Islam there, and he becomes this great abid, this great worshipper. And in fact, one time a thief came to his house at nighttime. Right, very funny story. A thief came to his house at nighttime to steal, and he could hear hear rattling, whatever. And he doesn't find anything because this man lived a life of zuhud. He really doesn't have much wealth. They didn't carry anything. And so this thief tries to find something valuable in his house to rob him. Doesn't find anything. So Imam Malik catches him in the action and says, "Listen, should I give you something more valuable?" He said, "What?" He said, "Come, let's pray 2 rakah salah." And the thief, out of embarrassment, joins him in salah. Now, then he brings this man to Fajr salah in the masjid. Everyone's like, "Who's this guest that you have with you? You never have guests." I mean, this Imam Malik ibn Dinar lived by himself, didn't have really guests. He said, "Who's the guest you have?" He said, "He came to steal, but I stole from him." He came to steal, but I stole from him. And subhanAllah, look at the mercy he has for a thief. You know why? Because he has a bad past. Someone who has a bad past, they know what's up, right? They don't judge people the same way. If you're someone who were born into a religious family and you live religious all your life, never did a single bad thing, and you just had a straight A's, you don't empathize with people who've been through tough times. Malik ibn Dinar, he been through the gutters, right? I mean, he was a hired robber. He was a hired hitman. I mean, he did some bad things. And so when he sees a robber come to his house, he has empathy for this robber. He said, "Listen, come, join me for salah. Like, I'm not gonna take you to the qadi and get your hand chopped off. Just come with me. Let's pray." Right? And so what's important in this story is that for me it was fascinating that Malik ibn Dinar, he changed his life once for his daughter, but it didn't last. But then when he changed for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, changed for himself, for his own purpose, then it lasted. So when you think about what is the why do you want to change? Why do you want to improve? Think about, it's important for you to think about the reasons. Now, what will stop us from making changes are our denial, our pride, and our fear. I started this session by reciting Surah Araf, right? If you guys all remember, I started from Surah Araf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ صَوَّرْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this incident where all the angels are asked to show their respect to Adam alayhi salam, and Iblis, he doesn't, right? And very interesting what he says. He said, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ طِينٍ. And that is the hallmark of what stops you from making changes in your life, for working on your habit, is one, denial. You think that bad habit that you have is not a big deal. You don't even know it's a bad habit. Or two, you have pride. You think, I'm good enough, that's okay, I'm a good person, right? Or fear. What is fear? Iblis said, Ya Allah, give me till Yawm al-Qiyamah. I don't want to face consequences now. Give me till Yawm al-Qiyamah. Right? And that's because a lot of us, let's be honest, part of the reason why we are afraid of letting go of the sin, and deep down we're afraid, because we actually like the sin. There's a benefit that we get from it. Can you imagine that we actually have a fear that, how can I become a person who prays Fajr every day? What if I'm tired one day? Can I really be that person? Right? Or you're like, I can't let go of this haram music. Like, what if I'm like in the mood one day, I'm driving, like, I have nothing to listen to. Deep down, there's a love for the sin that you have. Love for the bad habit that you have. Or, another kind of fear is that you think you're not capable of it. It's going to be too hard. I tried quitting in Ramadan. It was too much work. Or being a morning person, I tried it for a week. I'm tired in the day, and at nighttime, people text me and I'm talking, and then I wake up all groggy in the morning. I can't do this. Right? There's a fear that you have that stops you from making change. And what's amazing is that shaitan displays all three of these. And the very next section of that page, the same page in Surah Araf, Adam as-salam makes a mistake. What's the first thing he does? Complete acceptance. Right? As soon as, وَنَادَى رَبُّهُمَا أَلَمْ أَنْهَاكُمَا, then Allah turns around and says, did I tell you not to go? And the first thing he says, the next verse is what? قَالَ رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. No excuse, no making up reasons, no like, Ya Allah, delay the punishment, Ya Allah, no, right away. رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. It's such a drastic comparison between how Iblis deals with his wrongdoing and how Adam as-salam deals with wrongdoing. In the same page of the Quran. And so one of the things that stops us from being able to work on our habit is that denial, the pride, the fear that we have, right? And sometimes we say, you fear of losing it. So think about this. If you're asking yourself, I only tried it didn't work. What if I like what I'm doing, right? Then ask yourself those questions. So you need to be able to figure out compelling reasons as to why you want to change. Even, and I will leave you with this, even you want to start a good habit, you need compelling reasons. So the brother said, you'll get 10 reward. That's good. You'll get Jannah. That's very good. But that's not immediate enough. So for example, there's, in America, and I will share this example. In the 1900s, only 7% of America used to brush their teeth. In the 1900s, only 7% of America used to brush their teeth. Now, everyone knew the benefit of brushing the teeth. Gum health, right? You should brush your teeth. It's good for you. Everyone knew that. There were advertisements about brush your teeth, there's gum health and this. But it just didn't work. Up until a very clever marketer, from Colgate actually, they started to input mint inside the toothpaste. Why? What's the difference mint? Do you know mint has no useful benefit? Okay, it smells good, but it has no benefit to your gum health. The mint that they have inside the toothpaste doesn't do anything for the film that's on your teeth or the back of it. Doesn't do anything, not much. But when you brush your teeth, you feel like you're cleaning. You get out the bathroom, you're like, yeah, I did something. Immediate effect. Right? That's why even the soap, for example, you go Bath and Beyond, you put soap, take the soap out. All that foaminess doesn't do anything for actual cleaning of the plate. You know that, right? The foam is it makes you feel like a lot is happening. But actually is what it does is that the dirt molecule attaches with the soap molecule, and it takes it with the water, it washes away. That's what it does really. Have you seen the actual soap in a chemistry lab? Just a slimy, it's not all fancy, nice smell. It doesn't smell like whatever the fancy cinnamon, whatever. It doesn't smell like that. It doesn't do anything, but it feels something you're doing, right? And so for your habit, even you need something immediate. So you want to go to gym. It's not about losing 15 pounds. That's not going to motivate you. But me feeling good after every single workout. And I feel good, and I go home, take a shower, I feel like, wow, I feel good. That's going to motivate you. Or Fajr Salah. Yes, it's haram if you miss a Salah. Yes, you crunch on Allah and Jannah. It's all great. But if you realize that you pray Fajr, that day, you feel so much blessing in your day, so much barakah, everything goes right. you start to realize, okay, I want to pray Fajr. Now, that's not the reason why you should be praying Fajr. That's not the only reason, right? You should pray because it is fard. You should pray because, for Jannah, of course. But immediate effect has a lot more motivating to you. So think about all the habits that you have, and I want you to think about, what is the immediate reasons you want to do it. Now, I did say there were how many steps? 5. What are the 5 steps? Identify. Why? Pattern. Replace it, and then condition it. Okay, good. I'm only up to the pattern now. So I finished identifying. I finished and the why. I'm going to actually end with why, because I want to. How about this? I want to respect the time. I said I'm going to go on for only an hour. So I want to do this. The habit that you wrote on your piece of paper. I want you to take another minute and write down a compelling reason why you want to stop. So think about this. Do any of the habits that you wrote down, do they interfere with your behavior? Would you be happier if you did not do those things? How would your life be different if you did not have those habits? Does these habits cause you pain? What kind of pain? And then for the good habit, also write down compelling reasons. What are some immediate good things that will come if you start that habit? Not long term, immediate. Okay, so I want you to take just a minute, and the bad habit that you wrote, I want you to write down the reasons, and the good habit that you wrote, I want to write down reasons. Is that clear? Make sense? Take a minute. So, okay, Fahim, give me a good example. Using curse words, for example. That's a bad habit. Okay, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand who is curse words, but I'm just saying. Let's explore the curse words. Like, why do we use profanity? Anyone knows? What's the trigger? What's the behavior, and what's the reward? You get angry, so you use profanity. Okay, and what's the benefit of profanity? You express yourself. You make it heard. I use a big word. I mean it. Right? Okay. All right. What's the trigger for profanity? Anyone else knows? Okay. No, that's true. Okay. What in the moment? What do you think triggers the use of profanity? Why do people use profanity? They're trying to drive certain notion or action from others, and they feel if they don't use a colorful language, it will not get the desired effect. So, I want to hurt someone. There's a curse word for that. So I feel weak. I feel like I've been unjustly dealt with. So I'm going to use a word which will make sure to inflict harm. A verbal harm on someone else. So that's one reason. Or, I want to be funny. I am being irrelevant right now. No one is listening to what I'm saying. By throwing a curse word, the F-bomb, all of a sudden now I am relevant. Because now my words are a little more colorful. Okay, I'm very angry. And I want people to know that I'm angry. If I just say that I'm angry, that's one level. But if I use a colorful word with it, people will know really that I'm really angry. So there's a trigger, there's a behavior, there's a reward. What can someone else? What can be the opposite of that? So that's a bad habit. Someone does a bad habit. You have to ask yourself the question: when did it start? How did you learn to use that? When did you start using it? Then you ask yourself the question: why do you want to stop? So you say, you know what? Foul mouth is not good. It's haram. It's sinful. Okay. What else? It makes me look unintelligent. Because they say that if you're using foul language, it means that you lack the intelligence to use more intelligent words. Okay, that's good. Is that good enough? Is that gonna let me? Is that gonna motivate me to change? Right? And what if I read the ayat in the Quran where it says that no way that a foul language can reside in someone who has iman in their heart. If you have iman in your heart, foul language cannot come out of your mouth. Impossible. Because foul language cannot be produced. No production of foul language can happen inside a heart that has iman. You're like, whoa. No, that's a little too much. I should not have foul language being produced inside my heart and coming out of my mouth when I have iman in my heart. Right? So thinking through what are those very strong reasons as to why I want to change. Okay? And it may mean to transform the word, right? So I'm not saying instead of saying the S word, you say sugar, honey, iced tea. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, how can you learn to better express yourself? How can you learn to be more funny instead of using foul language? How can you learn to express your anger without necessarily using a foul language? So that's a you problem. That's a lack of skill problem. That's a little bit of increasing your vocabulary problem. Right? And so, very good example for him. So being able to think about our bad habits and think about why we do it, how we do it. Okay. Now, I am done with this section of identifying and deciding, done with the section of finding your why. I still do have pattern, replacing, and conditioning left. But we're at 3 o'clock. So what do we do? So quick question first. When you guys came to this program, this session here, how long did you think the program was going to be for? 1 hour? You thought it was an hour program? Yeah? Till Asr, okay. Anyone thought it was going to be till Maghrib? All right, okay. So we have some people thought it was going to be an hour, some thought it was from Asr. Okay. So it's 3 o'clock. I can continue, but I could also end. So we need a group vote. All right. I do have another program at the Maghrib in Astoria. So that would be, what time is Maghrib? Almost 6, right? Okay. So, okay, officially done with the first session. I'll give you guys 2 minutes of breathing time. What I want you to do in this 2-3 minutes is I want you to go and say salam to one person and find out how their day has been. Okay? And then after the 2-3 minutes, if you guys still here, I'll do another 30-minute session. How about that as a bonus? Sounds good? I was going to do an hour only. Initially, Sheikh Akib told me to do from Dhuhr Asr. So you're right. He did tell me to do from Dhuhr Asr. But I came, I was like a small group. I'll keep it a short session. But we covered nicely the 2 steps. But I'll cover the last 3 if we still have interest, inshallah. If not, we'll set another time, inshallah. We'll do another session another day. Okay? So I'll give you 2-3 minutes. You guys, inshallah, say salam to one person that you don't know too well. I know it's a small group, but one person you don't know too well. And inshallah, I want you to salam to them, ask them how their day has been, how their week has been. And then if you're still here another 2-3 minutes, we will continue. If not, I'll do a short Q&A and then we'll end it. Okay? I'll see what the interest level is after 2-3 minutes. Okay, assalamu alaikum. You have to get up and say salam actually. Someone you don't know.
program. Well, we have to go for some work, inshallah. You should continue the lecture here, inshallah.
We'll do a Q&A quickly.
Yeah, inshallah.
We'll do another one next time.
What's your name, brother?
Mohammad Hasan.
Came from Long Island. See? Yeah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Alrighty. Assalamu alaikum. If you're still here, just come up to the front. We have a few more people left. We'll do, inshallah, we will just do a quick Q&A, and we will not do another session, inshallah. Based on just people's schedules and so forth. Inshallah, I'm happy to, inshallah, we'll do another session in the near future when we'll talk more. But I want to just give some time. Anyone has any questions or anything like that? Only have people in the room. I'm happy to answer. But with that, let me see. Yeah, inshallah. So let's do that. That's our decision, inshallah. Okay. Yeah, you can collect that's fine. All right. So if any thoughts, any questions, open floor. It doesn't have to be about habit. It could be about anything that's on your mind that can be of help with, inshallah. We'll take 10 minutes, 15 minutes if questions. If not, we'll wrap it up, inshallah. Open floor. Yes.
So about finding complex reasons,
Yeah.
I realized that in my personal journey, like sometimes for a specific task, I do find the reasons and I start working on it. And after a few weeks, a few months, I just completely ignore it or so I'm very confused about this because I was able to change a lot of my bad habits and I was able to include a lot of good habits. But for few others, I realized that maybe I'm not able to find that specific reason why it's happening. But I do feel like I'm losing motivation.
Okay. Yeah. No, so the first two steps, identifying, finding why, exploring the pattern, that helps you get started, right? That helps you solidly take a strong foundation. But you need the replacement and the conditioning for it to stay. So it's important to think about that. Obviously, firstly, that you're not trying to change too many habits at one time. That's one. Two, that there is a transformation of who you are. So, for example, it's about changing your identity, right? So when you change a habit, you want to change who you think you are. So, for example, if someone, I'll give you an extreme example, like someone who just smokes cigarettes. When I tell them that I don't want you to stop smoking, I want you to become a non-smoker. So, if somebody who doesn't smoke, right? Like say someone as you don't smoke cigarettes. Doesn't matter it's after a meal or you're stressed. You're not gonna go smoke. That's not what you do. That's just not part of your habit. Now, you might go grab a chocolate, but you don't smoke. But someone who's a smoker, something happens, it's stress, they'll go, I gotta smoke. So when they tell me, yeah, I stopped smoking for the last 2 months or 1 year, so that's the problem. I don't want you to stop smoking. I want you to become a non-smoker, which means that smoking is no longer an option. So any kind of change we make in our life, it needs to be a permanent shift of who you think you are. So for example, if you say I'll give you the example of being a morning person. You know what? If you really want to be someone who's a morning person, that means you got to go to sleep by 9 o'clock. So now all your life schedule, and it's hard. People who have the morning schedule, they'll tell you that they have to sacrifice people will think they're weird. They have to sacrifice social time. They have to make sure they gain that eight and a half. Because if you're sleeping still at 12 and you're trying to start your day at Fajr, you can do that for like 2 months, but after a while you run out of the juice. Because this is not sustainable. Right? So any habit that you have, really think about it. Is it sustainable, what you're doing? Can it work with your schedule? And that's when it comes to conditioning and environment, is that your husband, your wife, your parents, your friends, are they in that same path? Right? If not, it's going to be hard. Right? So you have to change your social environment. So for example, there are studies that have found that where you have mice that are addicted to like cocaine, whatever, and if they're in a social environment where there's other healthy mice, whatever, they stop craving their cocaine. But when you put them back in isolation, they go back to it. So it's important that you have to also change what's around you. Like, think about the triggers, and you have to make plans for what triggers you too, right? Everyone has different triggers. So whatever is making you go back to some old habits, think about, what are those things that causes those, it's called halt, like, people, place, and things. You have to make changes to the people, place, and things. Now, a lot of young people tell me like, brother, that's good, but like, how do I change my place? I'm in a school. I'm in front of my teacher. I have the same group of friends. Change your emotional real estate. I'll give you simple ones. Change your emotional real estate. What that means is, what are you consuming online? I always give the example, and Fahim knows this. Like, I was not into like UFC. Now, one of our mutual friend, Jawad, one day he came and took my Instagram and added all this UFC accounts onto my Instagram. Now, every time I scroll Instagram, I do it habitually, I'm seeing all this UFC news. And within like few months, I started following UFC news. I was never interested in it, right? So think about your Instagram algorithm. What pages you follow, what videos that you're listening to. You have to be intentional about that. So my point is, and that's a little tangent, my point is, think about the environment. Is that going to sustain you? Because you can only push yourself that much. You have all these good habits you do, you're pushing. That's good for 2 months, 3 months. After a while, it's hard. So you have to change your condition around you, right? Your identity and the condition around you. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. Science varies on this, but they say that if you takes about 28 days, then that science is a little off, but it takes about 28 days to get started on a habit. It takes about 6 months to fully condition it. Yeah, it takes about 28 days to condition. Like, first 28 days is a little hard, right? But 6 months, and it gets easier and easier. It becomes more part of who you are. Okay, but part of good habit planning is also planning for high risk situations. Certain times you're going to relapse, quote unquote, on a bad habit, right? You have to plan for those actually, right? What will get you triggered. And you don't want to be a brave soul, right? I know so many brothers that they think they're brave souls. They're going to go hang out with these guys who are smoking and they're not going to smoke. Like, bro, you used to smoke before. So like, you cannot be in those situations. Like, you're going to get triggered, right? So being a little mindful about, planning your life that way. Yeah. Very similar. It'll take you break a bad habit. They're different formula, but it can also take in that same 28 days to 6 months, and then there will be some relapses. And don't beat yourself up with it. And that's the biggest thing. We and that's really what hurts me is that we take Islam in a place of guilt. Guilt isn't as emphasized in Islam, by the way. Gratitude is. Right? Guilt isn't part of our deen in that way that we think, right? I think we overuse guilt to do for donation, guilt to stop sins, guilt. It should come out of love, right? It should come out of khashya of Allah, which is a loving fear of Allah, not guilt. Guilt is not, and so I think it's very important that when we have lapses, and you will have lapses when you try to work on things, that you will miss the Fajr sometime, you will miss reading the Quran. It will happen. You say a curse word. It will happen, but not to beat yourself up, but to use that lapse as a place of growth and learning. We got to transform our guilt. We have to transform our lapses from guilt to a learning moment. Anytime you have a lapse, anytime you struggle with something, ask yourself, like, don't beat yourself up. Be like, okay, what happened? This is exciting. Let me find out why I did this. Become a student of yourself. Become a curious student of yourself. Yeah. So that's that. Any one last question, brothers? Yes.
I have very bad social anxiety,
Okay.
but I don't really show it. Like,
Yeah.
she was telling me that no, you
Yeah.
look like you're anxious.
Yeah.
You look like you're chill, whatever. So
Mm.
yeah, I have social anxiety. Even when I'm walking in public, I'm like,
Okay.
you know, people are probably judging me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something's going on with
That is not a habit issue, but it's separate discussion. But social anxiety, some of it can be normal. Some people are naturally more introvert than extrovert. Some people naturally get more anxious. So social anxiety is not a bad thing. Don't beat yourself up. We have this problem in our culture now, where everyone has to be super extrovert, super public, super loud, and that's not healthy. So I think a lot of introverts and people with social anxiety are made to feel like they're not good enough because they're not all bubbly and loud and engaging, and that is not healthy. So that's first thing to kind of realize, that it's some level of social anxiety is okay, right? Secondly, if you think it's really bothering you, you need to do some work on it, right? And so you have to ask yourself the question, why do I have social anxiety? Is it because of my insecurities? Is it because of my self-image and things like that? Then looking at, how can I work on that? And then there are things you can do from slowly, having people who support you, going through some mentorship. There are things you can do. Practicing even some meditation and some things like that. So people say it helps, and breathing and things like that. But you can seek professional help if anything is really bothering you. But also, don't beat yourself up about this. If you're functioning well, your school is fine, your career is fine. Honestly, I think there's too much pressure in this culture for everyone to be bubbly and loud and extrovert. And that's just not right. It's just not right. Yeah. Any last thoughts? That's it, guys. Any questions? How do you discipline your life as a college student? So, college is very interesting, especially if you're a new college student. You go from a high school, a very structured life, right? In high school, bell rings, you go here, you sit there, and you did that all throughout, when you're young. Not only that, mama took care of everything. You forgot your lunch, mama packed it, right? Everything was, somebody monitored you. Now all of a sudden you go to college, and you find this newfound freedom for the first time in your life. Also, your parents, maybe not Desi parents, but some parents, at least they kind of start to let loose. And so you have your own time. So for the first time, you're trying to figure out, how do I manage my own schedule? How do I keep myself accountable? And so it is a little bit of a learning process. Same way, people who finish school and they go to job for the first time, and they really struggle for the first few years. I struggled, I remember, right? Just like, first time in your life, you go from being a student to now all of a sudden in the workforce, it gets also becomes, these transitions are hard, right? So discipline as a college student, honestly, I would say for you to first realize that some level of growth and learning is normal, that it will take you some time. You don't have to be perfect, right? Don't put that pressure on yourself. Matter of fact, all that perfection pressure makes you act out the opposite direction. You feel all that anxious, insecure, and not feel good enough about yourself, and then you act out by hiding in secrets and addictions. Right? So let go of that pressure. Let go of that constant. Especially our parents too. They will put a lot of pressure on you, like to be perfect, to be this, and you gotta let that go, because that actually stops you. That holds you back, and that crumbles you. Right? So you gotta know that it's a journey. You're just freaking 20 years old. It's okay. Like you have a whole life ahead of you. You'll be just fine. And so very important to have some self-love for yourself. And number two, after that, read some books. I think it's time for learning. I think that age, you need to grow in your learning of how to manage time. No one taught you how to manage your time. No one taught you how to make your schedules. No one taught you how to set goals. It takes learning. You can't just come up. It just doesn't come from thin air, right? So I think it's a good time to be easy with yourself, and at the same time, read some books. So read some books, listen to some YouTube videos, and read some articles, get some posts. There are a lot of good content out there, how to make your schedule, how to set goals, how to deal with procrastination. You attending talks like this or you learn about habits is a lot of learning time. And inshallah, you'll slowly start to apply. and having some mentors, some older brothers and mentors who you see are good at their schedules, have good time management. Like just spending time with them, I think will help you. Because if you talk to other kids, also 18, 20 years old, they're as lost as you are, and you all gonna be big old lost together, right? So I think it's important to find some older mentors, that you can kind of connect with and things like that. I keep saying last question, and I keep taking more, but I really mean it. Last question. Anybody? Final thought? Good? Okay, Jazakallah khairan. I really appreciate you all staying back for another 20 minutes or so for Q&A. I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He bless you, bless your families, that what we shared from this psychology of sin and habits, that it was helpful, that this is a starting point, inshallah, that you continue to improve, work on yourself. And self-growth is a lifelong journey, right? This is part of us improving ourselves. None of us are angels. We will never become perfect. If we were that, you will be angels. So, but the idea is to become better and better every day, work on our sins, improve, make istighfar, continue to grow. Inshallah, Allah bless you. Inshallah, if there's anything that was beneficial, it's from the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that was incorrect, it's my fault alone. Keep me in your dua, keep my family in your dua. And inshallah, hope to see you all again soon. Inshallah, I don't live in the area anymore, but I do come often. My parents are still here, so always really a blessing to come to JMC and be part of the community. Inshallah. So keep me in your dua. Jazakumullah khairan. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
How long you here for?
Huh?
How long you here? Wait, before you get it, I need a portrait of you.
Portrait.